This is Legal Nurse Podcast, the first ever podcast specifically for legal nurse consultants. You'll learn tips, tricks, and strategies that you can use in your LNC career. If you'd love to hold a book in your hands that you helped to write, be sure to pay attention to the information that I share with you during this show. Welcome to Legal Nurse Podcast. I'm Pat Iyer, the host of your show. We are now in our 8th year of production, and I'm delighted that you are watching me on the YouTube channel, Legal Nurse Business, or listening to us on the audio channels. Today, I'm going to focus on something that can have a profound impact on attracting attorneys to your business, and that is using LinkedIn posts and articles and using them in an effective way. In this method of social media, of being able to share your expertise, you have several choices in terms of the kinds of content that you share and the formats that you share. I'm going to focus primarily on LinkedIn posts in this podcast and also tell you a little bit about using articles. The post is typically anywhere between 20 to 400 words. There's no magic limit. There's no right size number of words. It can be a very brief post and could be a little bit longer. The advantages of using LinkedIn posts is that it's not time consuming. You can pull together a post in a few minutes. You don't have to give it a lot of deep thought. You don't have to write several drafts. It's something that you can produce quickly. And that can make you more productive so that you are able to produce more of these posts and get them out on a more frequent basis. And by more frequent basis, if you're not posting at all, I would make a goal of posting at least a couple times a week. You can use short paragraphs in your posts. Because of the shortened attention spans that we're all facing, we're all experiencing, longer content is not as popular as shorter content. We have been trained and conditioned to expect to get answers and points quickly. When I've taught legal nurse consultants how to write reports in the past, I have suggested to them no more than 10 lines in a paragraph. And I'm not talking about 10 sentences. I'm talking about 10 lines of type. Now the recommendation is 4 to 6. People want a little bit of white space between the thoughts. They want to be able to read more quickly. The minus of a post is that you have to have a limited focus. You're focusing on a specific topic and maybe one tiny point in a topic in a post. You don't have a lot of room to work with, so you can't have a far-ranging, rambling post. It's got to be focused to a specific point that you want to make. And that means that every word that you put in a post counts. You don't have redundancy. You don't have long, flowery sentences. You want tightly constructed sentences that are easily understandable to the people you're writing for. Which brings me to, who is your ideal client? You're writing LinkedIn posts ideally for the attorneys you want to attract. If you are an expert in neonatal issues, you might be having your posts focused on medical malpractice attorneys with the assumption that they're going to get neonatal cases at some point in their career, and you want them to think of you when they do. If you are a nursing home expert, your target market is plaintiff and defense attorneys who are litigating nursing home cases. Your content might be on changes in the regulations of CMS, which is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which regulate healthcare facilities in the United States. Or you could be focusing on the risk factors for falls in a nursing home, or new theories of defending pressure injury cases, clinical signs of malnutrition and dehydration when the patient is taken to the emergency department because of being malnourished, what might show up in the lab work. You could write a post about that. Your focus is on what the attorney would be most interested in, putting yourself in their shoes and using that to select your content. The content in your post should be 80% tips and useful information and only 20% sales. Breaking that down a little bit further, half of your content should fit into the category of being entertaining or interesting. You're asking for input, like, what do you think? You're trying to get some engagement. You're providing some interesting facts or sharing a fun photo. By fun photo, not necessarily, this is what I ate for dinner last night, or here's my child on her high school graduation event, but something that attorneys might find amusing. And I know that's pretty vague. It could be a medical scene of chaos, for example, showing after a code. I remember some of the most vivid medical scene pictures I've seen is what is left in the wake after a code has been run, a cardiac arrest resuscitation effort, with medical equipment all over the room, displaying the frantic efforts that went into resuscitating that person. 30% of your content should be informative. It should be tips. It should be trends. It should be content that would be helpful to an attorney in the attorney's practice of law. You might comment on current happenings or on news. I saw an article yesterday that purported to show a person who had climbed into an overhead bin in an airplane. And there was an article by somebody in the airline industry about why it was not a good idea to climb into the overhead bin of an airplane. You could damage the seats as you're trying to get up into the bin. You could land on people on your way down. You could be locked inside because there's no latch on the inside of those bins. All those things are pretty obvious. You would think that most people would know you shouldn't climb up into the overhead bin, but it did provoke an article. And then I included the link to that article and added my own comments about how this was a personal injury case in the making. There are many things in the news that you can comment on. Put the link to the article from the news and then comment on it. Add your twist. And then 20% of this is promotional, about you. Only 20%. Not, I'm a legal nurse consultant and I can help you with your cases and hire me and you need to work with me and here I am. That's all pure self-promotional. But in a stated, subtle way, every time you're providing information that's informative, showing off your knowledge, you are indeed providing people with some understanding of your business and your level of knowledge. When you are picking a topic for a post or an article, think about, does this subject interest your ideal client? Is this something that is of direct relevance to attorneys? If you're writing for other legal nurse consultants, maybe you're a subcontractor looking to get hired by legal nurse consultants, but your subjects typically are going to be geared to attorneys and something that they would find interesting. And again, something that shows a knowledge of an understanding of the attorney's focus. I've seen legal nurse consultants write health news, for example, tips to avoid heat stroke in the summer. Well, that's great if you want to educate lay people. And yes, I know attorneys are lay people, but it's rare that an attorney is going to be litigating a case involving heat stroke unless That's a case with a construction worker who is denied breaks or the opportunity to have bottles of water to cool off in the summer when they're working outdoors or on the top of a blacktop roof when the heat on that surface is over 100 degrees. That could result in litigation. But typically, heat stroke is something that's not going to give rise to a lawsuit. Do you feel passion for your subject? Is this something that you're interested in? You should be interested in it and want to delve into it and think about it and bring it to the attorney who's going to be seeing your post on LinkedIn. What do you want to achieve with your post? Is it education? Is it visibility? Is it your authority? Is it to entertain or amuse? What points are you trying to make in your post? What are the key pieces of information? What's the take-home message that you want to deliver in that post? And then what is your call to action? Is it come to my website and sign up for my free report? Is it sign up for my event? Is it some other thing? Give me a call, email me about a case. What is it that you want that person to do after looking at your post? Not every post needs a call to action, but the ones that are especially promotional need a call to action. As you are thinking through what you want to include in your post, you're starting with something that will stop the scroll, something that will grab the attention of the attorney. Is it going to be asking a question? And I'll give you some examples of attention-getting sentences, something that will attract them so that they'll pause and read your post. And then what are the main points that you want to make? With my post that I put on Don't Climb into the Overhead Bin of an Airplane, my main point was, I'm not sure that this picture was real, that people were talking about, but it seemed like it would be a very dangerous thing for somebody to do. I didn't have a very deep, involved post. It was, whoa, would somebody really do that? And they could get hurt by doing that. Some of the attention-grabbing things that you can use, there are 3 A's. Before we continue, I'd like to share a few details about a project that you can join to gain more visibility and authority as a legal nurse consultant. The 3rd volume of Medical Records Analysis is now forming. In December of 2022, we published our first volume, which was a book directed to attorneys and written by legal nurse consultants. It's a compilation book with each chapter written by a different legal nurse consultant. In November 2023, we came up with a 2nd volume with all new chapters, and some of the authors were in both volumes. With the combined marketing acumen and activities of the authors of each of those books, we reached Amazon bestseller status in several categories. And now I'm opening up the doors for the 3rd volume. Our plan is for this book to be published at the end of this year. The Medical Records Analysis book is a phenomenal opportunity for you to get the exposure to attorneys through the combined marketing efforts of all of the authors. I know LNCs in my community who purchased copies of the books and gave them away when they were exhibiting at attorney conferences. In fact, you'll hear from one such person, Dr. Christine Dorman, who has a doctorate in nursing practice and is a critical care nurse practitioner. She'll share with you her experience in being part of this compilation book.
I was initially quite nervous to write, did not think that I was going to be able to pull it off, but the opportunity that Pat presented with regards to going through the tutorial, that was very helpful and kind of streamlining how you needed to outline the book. So I actually enjoyed the entire process and was quite amazed at how many attorneys snatched up copies of our book at the Trial Lawyers Conference when I handed them out. Some of them were actually looking for the second volume. I did hand them out to some local attorneys here in Florida as well. So I'm sure they're going to, once they hear the third volume is going to be published, they're going to be wanting to know when they can get their hands on that one as well. So I know that it'll be chock full of wonderful information from all of us because we have such wonderful information to contribute. So I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone else has to contribute.
Thank you, Christine.
You're
I
welcome.
remember her talking about when she came back from that exhibit that she had a stack on her table and people were swarming trying to get their hands on those books.
And they did. Some of them, I turned around and some were gone. They just kept disappearing. And I had some of the attorneys reach out. I know the local ones here, where I am in Coral Springs, I emailed and asked, hey, are you guys publishing a second volume? So just, I think it's a good marketing piece for us, because we're not only just marketing one person, we're marketing the entire group. And like Pat said, the vast amount of experiences that we all have. I'm sure if we collectively added up our years of experience, it's just probably off the charts how much information that we have collectively. So they do look forward to what we have to contribute. So, but it did go over really well.
Get the details on how to join us by going to this link, lnc.tips/MRA3. That link again is lnc.tips/MRA3, lnc.tips/MRA3, and you'll find out how to join us. I'd love for you to consider this opportunity to become part of what will be a highly visible book written by LNCs for attorneys. And now let's return to the show. For attention-grabbing sentences, first ask a question. Is this something that you're interested in? Is this something you'd like to learn more about? Do you ever find that you're overwhelmed with voluminous medical records? Typically, you want to ask a question that the person is going to answer yes to. There's something psychological about being asked a question that you answer yes to that perks up your interest. You're addressing a pain point. Do you ever feel frustrated trying to read doctor's handwriting? Do you have an interest in knowing how to defend pressure injury cases in nursing homes? Are you ever in a position where you're not sure if a case has merit? And I'm making these up off the top of my head. They could be much more eloquently phrased than that. The pain point is something that is frustrating to the attorney, causes some anguish, addresses a learning deficit, points out a source of need, a fear, a frustration, a challenge. Those are all pain points. And you want to arouse interest. That's your third A. It should be something that will spark attention, intrigue, entertain, amuse, motivate, something that will arouse curiosity so that the attention is grabbed and the person goes on to read the rest of the post. Stories are a wonderful way of capturing people's attention. They can be brief, they can be longer. I've seen several legal nurse consultants very effectively use stories in their LinkedIn posts to pull in the reader and have them pay attention to what they're sharing. I saw a lot of these on Nurses Week, which in the United States is the beginning of May, a week in which healthcare employees receive recognition from their employers, sometimes gifts, sometimes special lunches, as a way of thanking them for working for their facility. Use terms that your ideal client will understand. This is key. You're writing for people who are not healthcare professionals. So you're interpreting and explaining medical terms. You're writing at a more basic level, or think of it as the language that you would use when you were teaching patients. There's no difference. You're making things understandable. And then as you are pulling together your post, you're including subheads and bullets if necessary. If this is a longer post, for example. LinkedIn does not allow you, as of now, to use italics and bold and underlined in your anywhere on your profile, whether it's in your description, whether it's in your posts. There is a site which is free called Yaytext, Yaytext, yaytext.com. You take a bit of text that you want to turn into bold or italics or underline and type it into the box on Yaytext, and it will display many options that you can use in order to apply that particular formatting to those words. You can copy and paste a section out of your description for your profile, for example, in LinkedIn, and then use Yaytext to give you that same set of words in either bold or italics or whatever formatting you want to use. And then the other thing to pay attention to for formatting is to use short links. Sometimes LinkedIn will create these for you. Sometimes they will refuse to display the text. You can go to external sites, either bit.ly, bit.ly, or tinyurl.com. They both work on the same principle that you establish a free account. You put in a long string of words and letters that you've copied from the URL of the site that you're wanting to refer to. And then you can create a short link using either of those two sites. The article that I had about not climbing into the overhead compartment of an airplane was too long for LinkedIn to display, but I went into bit.ly and created my own short link. It's always critical to check it first to make sure that it works and it takes you to the article that you're planning to quote in your post. And then you feel confident when you hit the send arrow on your post that that link is going to be valid. Many of the same principles of writing a post apply to articles. They are typically longer. They're up to 1,000 words in length. Often people include at the top some type of an eye-catching image, ideally of a person. We are trained to find looking at human faces more interesting than looking at abstract articles or abstract objects. The image at the top is in a horizontal format, and you can get from LinkedIn the dimensions of the images that should be included at the top of an article. You're going to select a clear and compelling title for your article that will stop people from scrolling, intrigue them, show that you've got something of value that they might be interested in reading. And then at the end of your article, you typically will include a link to your website. You want people to go back to your website to get to know you more and to want to find out what other things you have to offer. An article is often broken into thirds with an image at the top, an image after the first third, and another image after the second third. That gives visual interest to your article, breaks it up, as well as using subtitles to break it up and make it easier for the reader to go through. Articles end with hashtags, which are all one word, using the pound symbol and then all one word. So for example, if you were using medical malpractice as a hashtag, it would be the hashtag symbol pound medical malpractice without any spaces between medical and malpractice. The key in using LinkedIn effectively when you're posting short posts or articles is that you want to be interactive. Your goal in using the platform is to be able to connect with attorneys, to capture their attention, to show that you have information of value to them, so that you remember so that they remember you and keep you top of mind when they have a case with which you could help. You're going to be looking to make connections with attorneys and getting to know them. Don't immediately start selling as soon as you're connected. Don't say, "Hi, Mr. Attorney, I'm a legal nurse consultant. Thank you for accepting my connection. Here's what I can do for you. Hire me, hire me, hire me." That's immediately starting selling. That's a huge turnoff. If you're active in LinkedIn, which I highly recommend that you are, you have gotten connection requests like that. I have gotten connection requests like that. And often from people who don't bother to understand who I am. "Oh, you're a nurse. I sell hospital beds. Let me set up an appointment to tell you about my hospital beds." I don't buy hospital beds. That's not my role as a legal nurse consultant. Get to know the attorney. Start a little bit of a dialogue. See if you can get a conversation going. And then also be interactive with the posts that you see on LinkedIn. Comment on other people's posts. You should be connected to other legal nurse consultants as well as to attorneys. Write meaningful sentences. Make some comment on the content that they shared so that it shows that you're paying attention and you're reading. Don't simply hit that like arrow or that like hand, but make a comment. And that will show LinkedIn that that post is meaningful, and it will start displaying it to more people. And then act upon those news articles that you've seen. I talked about that in relation to posts. Report the interesting ones that you've seen. Ask people for their take on the topic. Have you ever seen this happen? It may be an article I can think of I saw a few months ago involving a child who was decapitated when the doctor pulled her out of the vaginal canal. I didn't know you could decapitate a newborn in that manner. I knew about shoulder dystocia, and I posted that in one of my social media spots in my Facebook group, which is Legal Nurse Business Growth Circle. I invite you to join my Facebook group, and I asked the people in the group, "Have you ever heard of this happening?" Somebody in the group had heard of it happening before. That's the kind of thing that is horrifying, first of all, and second of all, stimulates some discussion. And then ask a question of the reader. What's your take on this? What do you think? Get a dialogue going, get some back and forth. And then when people respond to you, to your question, note them, respond back, note the answer and respond back, acknowledge that you have seen it. Your goal will be to effectively use LinkedIn, and this is something that Sherry Martin, who is a LinkedIn expert, has drilled into my head, is go on LinkedIn on a daily basis, 15 to 20 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, if that's all you can spare. Look for posts that you can comment on, that you can share. Start posting yourself a few times a week. Go on LinkedIn specifically also to connect with people. Every time you go on the site, look for a couple of people that you'd like to connect with and send them an individualized invitation. As of this time of this recording, I have over 8,000 connections on LinkedIn. it all didn't happen in one day. It happened over the space of years of carrying out what I'm recommending that you do, of making a few connections each time you're on LinkedIn, and if at all possible, set up a time to talk with them. An off social media conversation, a real life Zoom call. I'm curious about your background. I'd like to get to know you a little bit. Make those invitations and you'll find that your relationships are deepening on LinkedIn. And you'll find you're getting the reward that you're looking for in terms of attracting attention from attorneys. In my coaching program, LNC Success Connection, we were talking about the value of this. And one of our members who's been posting videos, brief videos on LinkedIn, has gotten work from attorneys who recognized her knowledge, and hired her. Another person has gotten subcontracting jobs as a legal nurse consultant as a result of her visibility on LinkedIn. It is definitely worth the investment of time. And like all marketing methods, doing it consistently brings you the highest results. Hang on for just a few more minutes, and I'll share with you coming up next what we'll be covering on Legal Nurse Podcast. You'll have an opportunity coming up next to meet Summer Redding, who is a legal nurse consultant in independent practice. She's an emergency department nurse and assists behind the scenes as a consultant as well as an expert witness on emergency department nursing. Summer and I just finished our podcast, and I'm going to turn the tables on you, Summer, and say, what are some of the topics that we covered in your podcast?
Hi, Pat. Thank you. So today we covered about piercing the knowledge of so much information on how to get started in a legal nurse consultant. You have all the information and knowledge about where do you even begin. So I'll talk about how I learned through YouTube, watching videos regarding depositions, about how you can learn independent medical exams and see mock trials done before those, about how I took a community college class to learn about the legal aspects of the courtroom and stuff through that, and just give some tips and tricks about that I learned along the way, starting out along my journey.
You'll have a peek into the world of a legal nurse consultant who will share with you the strategies that she took to learn about the field, how she got started, and what she loves about legal nurse consulting. Summer Redding is my next guest. Be sure to check out her show. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's all for today. Be sure to check out this opportunity that I'm offering for a limited period. You'll have a chance to be part of a team of LNCs who are working together and sharing their wisdom by writing chapters for my next compilation book. Go to lnc.tips/MRA3. That's lnc.tips/MRA3.